It's Here First from IPR News. I'm Megan McKinney. Republican nominee for governor Zach Lahn is responding to criticism for maintaining another home in Kansas, and flash flooding over the weekend has displaced about 400 residents in Des Moines. It's Monday, July 6th. Zach Lahn, the Republican nominee for Iowa governor, has made his first public appearance since speaking at the Republican Party's state convention on June 6. Lahn, who grew up near Sioux City, bought his grandparents' family farm near Belle Plaine in 2014, and he said he made the full move back to Iowa in 2023. On Friday, Lahn used his speech in Tama to respond to Democrats and his general election opponent, Rob Sand, who questioned whether Lahn is a part-time Iowan because flight records for his plane shows he flies to Kansas about once a week.
I have a blended family. Some of the kids spend time in Kansas. I go back and forth. And my opponent has chosen this as the personal round of attacks to level against me. You want to know why they're focusing on it? Because Rob Sand is not a moderate. The people will know who Rob Sand is by the end of this campaign. I assure you that.
Sand is scheduled to hold town hall events in 8 northwest and north central counties this week. Some Iowans are still dealing with the aftermath of flash flooding in central and eastern Iowa that struck over the holiday weekend. Grundy Center got 5.5 inches of rain Thursday night into Friday morning, and the National Weather Services estimate an area that includes Ankeny and Ames got between 8 and 12 inches of rain from July 2nd through the morning of the 4th. Andrew Ansorgi is a meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Johnston.
As people walked outside, they would notice, just how humid it was. So it was very moisture-laden, and we had very weak winds throughout the atmosphere. So these storms kind of just sat. They spun up, they sat over the same areas, and then additional storms from the west kind of moved over slowly eastward and moved over those same areas.
Climate scientists say the number of humid and hot days is rising in the Midwest and South. On Friday night, 10,000 Mid-American customers in the Quad Cities lost power when a storm rolled through, and Saturday's 4th of July fireworks show along the Mississippi River was canceled. About 400 residents of a Des Moines apartment complex who were evacuated due to Thursday night flooding won't be able to return to their homes for weeks, or in some cases several months, due to the damage. A new program aims to scale up conservation practices in 22 counties upstream from the Des Moines Metro to improve water quality. Here's more about it from IPR's Rachel Kramer.
The Greater Des Moines Watershed Program includes incentives for farmers and landowners to plant more cover crops and add stream-side buffers. Both practices help prevent soil erosion and nutrient runoff, which can feed algal blooms and pollute drinking water. Iowa Secretary of Ag Mike Naig says other aspects of the program will be announced in the coming months.
We want to keep working lands working, so we're talking about how can we incorporate cattle into the landscape and what does that look like.
Details about precision nutrient management incentives are expected this fall. Funding comes from the Farm to Faucet package signed into law in June. It includes low-interest loans to communities upgrading drinking water and wastewater treatment plants. I'm Rachel Kramer, IPR News.
The head of the Iowa Biodiesel Board says producers are welcoming an executive order meant to streamline the process of claiming a tax credit for producing low-emission fuels, but there's still uncertainty. Grant Kimberly says some of the larger biodiesel producers are in a better position to claim the 45Z credit, but smaller, independent producers have to work through a third party to sell the credit and often have to wait several weeks and in some cases up to a year to get paid.
When you have to buy your feedstock every month and make sales every month, and then when you really don't get all your value for your sale immediately, but you got to turn around and buy more feedstock, that makes it a very challenging cash flow situation.
President Trump signed the executive order dubbed the Regenerative Feedstock Rule last month. Kimberly says the Energy and Treasury Departments still need to finalize rules for quantifying the greenhouse gas reductions of biofuel production and determine exact credit eligibility. You're listening to Here First from IPR News. I'm Megan McKinney. This week on the podcast, we're going to bring you personal stories of Iowans produced by Next Gen Journalism. Today on the podcast, we're going to hear from one Iowa man that says getting sober took a lot of the same life skills that had kept him partying for years, the inability to quit. Stay with us in just a moment for his story. Welcome back. It's Here First from IPR. I'm Megan McKinney. After finding himself drunk in the back of a police van, Rob Prohaska of Norwalk felt a sense of relief for the first time since trying to get sober. He knew from that moment on he would have a chance to recover from addiction and grow his life back from the ground up. Now 15 years sober, Prohaska owns 2 small businesses and shares a message of hope through his recovery. We hear a story in this report produced by Next Gen Journalism.
I got into a car accident, my fault, 100%. I was completely drunk. I was put in a paddy wagon, and when I was in there, I didn't feel any of the normal like fear or anger or panic that comes. I've been arrested probably 13 times, and I didn't have any of those normal reactions, the victim mentality. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. My name's Rob Prohaska. We are on my property, my home. It's an acreage here, 2 acres, just south of Des Moines in Norwalk. When I was a kid, I was an only child, just my mom and I think I was like 5 years old, and she asked what I wanted for my birthday, and I said a brother. Well, eventually, she got married, and he had 2 sons. And so I had my brother Josh, my brother John. So when I was a senior in high school, my older brother Josh, he got shot by a friend of his, and he killed him. I stopped caring whether I lived or died. I just didn't believe that I was long-term, right? 5 years later, I was living in Iowa City, just not going to school or anything, just there working a menial job so that I could party. And my younger brother, got in a car accident, John, and died. And it was alcohol related. So, that kind of took the wind out of me. It took a lot of that anger that I had from my older brother being murdered and turned it into sadness. I became an alcoholic. I have a super addictive personality. Once it became aware to me, once someone pointed it out and got it through, I started going to treatment, trying to stop, rehab. I'd get 6 weeks, 6 months. Nothing would stick. I would relapse, and each time would be worse and darker and scarier and more hopeless. And so that moment in the back of the paddy wagon just always stands out to me as a real moment of clarity for me. And oddly enough, I was probably blackout drunk, moments before that, but the shock of the accident, the shock of the arrest kind of snapped me out of it enough. And again, just instead of feeling upset about it, I felt relief. And then I ended up at the Fort. The Fort is a correctional facility it's a work release program. I just did every single thing that they asked me to do constantly. It was a full surrender. I think the same thing that kept me drunk allowed me to push through an insane hangover and party again the next day. It's kind of the same thing that helped me get sober. Just that inability to quit, that same kind of fight. It's the same thing that makes me successful now. I own 2 small businesses, hot sauce company, Brown Dogs Farm, that's 8 years old, and a food truck, Hotel Luna. We do Italian food. I do think that, not in every way, but I do think that I'm becoming much more like the person my grandfather was than the person that I was 15 years ago. My grandpa lived to 99 years old. He died just a couple years ago, and he's awesome. Just the most salt of the earth guy. And my grandma too. They had an acreage really similar to this. He'd have a huge garden, and he'd plant corn. He'd take me in an old blue pickup truck, and we'd go sell it. That's probably where I learned about small business. It's where I learned about connection to the community. He was always the beacon, right? The North Star. If I could just get to living a life like that, things are gonna be great. If I could just cut loose of this anchor that is literally drowning me, I'm gonna swim. I'm gonna swim. And that's what's happened.
Rob Prohaska lives in Norwalk. His story was produced by Susanna Creighton, and it comes to us from Next Gen Journalism, an organization that finds, coaches, and trains public media's next generation. Find more stories from the recent workshop here at IPR News at nextgenradio.org. We'll also have them this week in Here First. I'm Megan McKenney. Thanks for listening today. I hope you had a great and safe holiday weekend. Talk tomorrow.